everyone and welcome to our YouTube channel. So I'm Nitika and I'm going to cover the current affairs from the second week of June. So today I'm going to cover the news relating to some important announcements, some achievements, some good or bad news and the persons who made the news this week. So stay tuned and let's get started. So today the topics which we are going to cover are: firstly, Agnipath scheme, which is recently unveiled by the central government for our defense services. Second, the United Nations celebrates the World Day Against the Child Labour. And as the Mr. Ramnath Kovind is about to cover it, he's about to end his term. So we are about to start with our presidential elections. Then next, during the World Oceans Day on 8th of June, Mr. Jitendra Singh has announced that we are all set for Gaganyaan and the human ocean mission, and it will be ruled out by the second half of the 2023. Then next, again a big news for us, that NARIP, which is the National Ayurvedic Research Institute for Panchkarma, it is based in Kerala. So it has recently received the NABL certification, which is we are going to cover in our coming time. Next, the NH53, the National Highway 53, set the record, and we'll see why. Then next, the Ramsay Hunt syndrome, which made the news because of the famous pop singer Justin Bieber. Then next, we'll see what is Ancovax, which is the COVID vaccination developed for the animals. We will cover the Environmental Performance Index, which is related to the countries and their performance related to the environmental factors. And lastly, we'll cover the FDI inflows in 2021 across the globe. So let's get started. So we'll cover the first news of the day, which is the Agnipath scheme. So under this new scheme, around 45 to 50,000 soldiers who will be called Agniveers will be recruited annually for a short period, or their period will actually will belong till 4 years. And out of the total recruits, only 25% will be laid back and they will be continued for another 15 years of the under the permanent commission. So the aspirants between the age of 17.5 to 21 years will be eligible to apply for this scheme, and the scheme will be applicable only for the personals below the officer ranks. So ideally this recruitment will be done on an all India all class basis, wherein the recruitees will be from they can be from any class, from any religion, any region, and the recruitment will be totally unbiased. So currently the recruitment is based on the regiment system, which is based on the region and the castes. So their training period will be 6 months and they have a deployment of nearly 3.5 years, which ideally will make 4 years in compact. So this scheme was majorly ruled out by the center government to initiate or to mainly inculcate the tech development among the youth. So ideally central government wants that the youth must be tech savvy, and at the earlier stage they will be trained well, so that in their later years, if they are not deployed in the armed services, then definitely they can take jobs in many other areas which are more or less related to the technology. So besides this, even the idea behind this scheme was to cut down their pension bill. So it has been estimated that by ruling out this scheme, the central government is going to save around 11.5 crore of the pension amount from one sepoy, right? So of course, another thing, this will make the youth future ready regarding the technology, and it is of course easier to train the youth as compared to the others or as compared to the older generation. So even with this scheme, the average armed force year, which is the average year through which the armed forces are currently being there, for example the average expectation year, so it is currently 32 years. So ideally the armed forces are serving the persons who are 32 years of age. So with this scheme, the average year in armed forces will cut down by 25 or 26 years. So this is again a very good scheme launched by the cabinet, through which the youth will be more tech driven, as as well as they will be more inclined towards the defense services, and if not defense services, at least they'll be future ready. So the next we have is, so recently the National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights, NCPCR, is celebrating the Elimination of Child Labour Week in the honor of the World Day Against the Child Labour from 12th of June to 20th of June. So now talking about the child labour, of course the United Nations celebrate or observes 12th of June as the day to fight against or to eliminate the child labour. So International Labour Organization defines child labour as the work that deprives the children of their childhood, their potential and their dignity, and that is harmful for their physical and mental well-being. So ILO for the first time observed this day in the 2002, and the need to protect children from the atrocities, from this labor, from these detrimental impacts is actually being felt. So this year in 2022, the theme of this day was universal social protection to end the child labor. So every year the ILO specifies a certain theme on which the countries they abide by and they follow up the same. So ever since the need has been felt regarding the elimination of child labor, the United Nations is doing a lot. For the first time in 1959, the United Nations engaged itself in eliminating the child labor and has declared has given the declaration for the rights of the child. So this was the first time that United Nations actually came forward for and spoke against the child labor. And ever since, definitely we have certain other conventions as given by ILO. For example, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, given in 1989, which contains the idea that the children are not just the objects, or they are not the objects who belong to their parents or for whom the decisions can be made. They should be treated as human beings, and they have their own will and they can take their own decisions as well. So even after this convention, parallelly we had ILO Convention 138 and 182, which conventions has given the worst forms of child labor and has also set the minimum age for the employment. So apart from this, even in the year 2019, the United Nations General Assembly has actually declared the year 2021 as the International Year to Eliminate the Child Labor. So United Nations has also asked the ILO to make some stringent efforts to implement this year across the globe and to help eradicating the child labor from the countries, or even from the low income economies, right? So apart from this, let's talk about the Indian Constitution. What do we have for child labor? So Article 21A and Article 45 deals with the right to education, and it provides that the state must compulsorily and provide the free education to the children of the age 6 to 14 years. So besides this, we even have Article 24, where there is a provision under which the child below the age of 14 years cannot be employed in any mine, factory or any hazardous workplace. Besides the constitutional framework, even the government has given several measures. For example, the pencil platform. So this pencil platform is to ensure the effective implementation for the protection of the child labor. So we even have the Child Labor Protection and Prohibition and Regulation Act to 1986, which was further amended in 2016, which strictly prohibits any kind of employment to the children below the age of 14 years. Apart from this, we have Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act 2006, and we have Right to Education Act 2009, which further empowers the child rights. So definitely all the efforts have been driven towards the benefits of child, but even then the efforts are not in lines with what we want to achieve. Currently, approximately only 1.1% of the GDP is spent on the social protection for child, which is not enough to meet the current challenges. So which is why the international days like these are very important to be observed, so that it actually it publicize, it educate public about what is happening in the world. It actually make into the political agendas, and it helps governments to actually focus on the real problems and making some schemes about it, so that we can on real time basis we can work on it and help the countries getting out from it. It is very important to mobilize our resources in a way that these socio-economic issues can also be catered timely, right? So moving ahead, all right. So the third one we have is the 16th presidential election. So as the term of office of Mr. Ramnath Kovind, the current president of India, is ending on 24th of July, so the presidential elections are underway. The Indian president is elected through an electoral college system, so wherein the votes are cast by the national and state level lawmakers. So the elections are conducted and they are overseen by the Election Commission of India, and it is made up of the elected members of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha and the MLAs or the member of legislative assemblies of state and the union territories. So the articles 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, they all deal with the President of India. So related to election of president, the manner, the term, the eligibility for re-election and qualification. So everything is catered under these articles. However, if we talk about the procedure, so as per the Article 62 of the Constitution, an election to fill a vacancy to be caused by the expiration of the term of the office of the outgoing president is required to be completed before the expiration of the term. And as per Article 54 of the Constitution, the President of India is elected by the members of Electoral College, which actually consists of the elected members of both the houses of parliament and elected members of legislative assemblies, all states, including the National Capital Territory of Delhi and the UT of Puducherry, right? So before the voting is done, it comes the nomination stage. So first we have the nomination stage, wherein the candidate who is intended to take participation in the election will file for the nomination along with a signed list of 50 proposers and 50 seconders, right? So these proposers and seconders can be anyone from the total numbers of electoral college, and if any elector has given the name or has signed anyone's nomination, so they cannot sign anyone else's nomination. So this is also very important. So talking about the value of the voting, so it is not that one MLA or one MP carries one vote. So we have given a fixed value of voting, fixed value of number to each vote. So the fixed value of the MPs of both the houses is taken as 708, which is 708. So it is the fixed value which is given to the weightage to one vote of an MP, or you can say, the houses, both the houses of the parliament, right? Meanwhile, if I talk about the MLAs, or the member of legislative assemblies from the states, so their weightage of vote will be calculated on the basis of a set formula, which is taken as the total number of population, to be divided by the number of MLAs in their legislative assemblies. So whatever the result will be cut down, or will be stated quotient by 1000, and thus their weightage will be decided. So currently Madhya Pradesh stood at first, wherein they have the the voting number, or they have the highest vote value, for which for each of its MLA they stand at 208. So 208 is the voting value of each MLA from the Uttar Pradesh. And whereas if we talk about the other states, like Maharashtra has 175, and we have even Arunachal Pradesh, where the vote value is merely 8. So it totally depends on the number of population and number of MLAs in a particular state, and their vote value, right? So the next is, so what is required to secure a victory? So a nominated candidate, they does not secure a victory just by merely having a simple majority. So to win this election, they need to secure 50% of the total votes cast plus 1 of the total votes cast plus 1, right? And the president's election, they are held in the secret ballot format, and whosoever will be voting, so the voting is ideally different from what we see in the regular elections. So herein, the voters of the electoral college, they write the names of the candidates as on the ballot paper in the order of preferences, right? So this is how the ballot paper thing works during the presidential elections. Now the question arises is, can the president be impeached? So yes, our article, our constitution does provide for the impeachment of president under Article 61. So they can be removed on the grounds of violation of the constitution. So that was related to the presidential election. So next, moving on to the next news, that is related to the Gaganyaan and the Human Ocean Mission. So during the address on the World Oceans Day, Mr. Jitendra Singh said that the trials of the Gaganyaan for both the space and the ocean manned missions have reached an advanced stage, and they are all set to be launched on the second half of 2023. So speaking of Gaganyaan, so it is a mission by the ISRO, which is Indian Space Research Organization, and under the Gaganyaan, so we have 3 flights which will be sent into the orbit. So 2 will be unmanned flight and 1 will be human space flight. So this Gaganyaan system module, which is also called as the orbital module, so we'll have 3 Indian astronauts, including a woman, and they will be trained by the Russian space agencies, Glavkosmos. So I'm writing it here. Glavkosmos. Right? So this Gaganyaan, it will circle on the lower orbits of the Earth at an altitude of 300 to 400 kilometers from the Earth for nearly 5 to 7 days, right? On the other hand, speaking of the Human Ocean Mission, that is the also called as Samudrayaan mission. So it is the India's first manned ocean mission, and it is a part of the Deep Ocean Mission. So the aim is to send men deep into the ocean in the submersible vehicle for the deep ocean exploration and rare mineral mining. So if this mission gets successful, so we will join the elite group wherein Russia, USA, France, Japan and China, so they have also successfully launched their deep sea missions to have a niche technology and the vehicles to carry out the subsea activities. So as a part of this mission, in 2023, the sea trials of 500-meter rated shallow water version of the manned submersibles will be done lately. So these two missions currently are very important for us, as a humongous amount has been spent on these missions, and the idea is to make India ahead in the list of the technology. And even in the previous videos we've done that India's startup ecosystem, India's technology, India's marketplace is growing larger and larger year by year, which is why now India is actually spreading its roots through the Indo-Pacific region, and of course the ocean mission, Sagar Mala mission, and the Indian Ocean explorations are very important for us. So even in the coming days, you must be hearing a lot about India making its presence in the Indian Ocean by multiple programs to be launched, so that we can make excessive use of the oceans. So even we have several tie-ups and agreements with the nations like Sri Lanka, Maldives, we have Africa, Iran. So the ports are being aggressively used by India even for trading. So this will not only reduce our over dependence on the petroleum fuel, so it will definitely help us in getting along with the current lines of ocean energies, right? Then the next one we have is, okay, so National Ayurveda Research Institute for Panchkarma. So the Department of Biochemistry and Pathology of National Ayurveda Research Institute for Panchkarma recently got accredited by the NABL, which is the National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration, NABL, calibration laboratories. So this NARIP is based in Cheruturuthi, Thrissur, Kerala, right? And it has got its accreditation for its laboratory services. So this is again a wonderful news that we will be ahead in the Ayurvedic research now. So Ayurveda has of course gained much of its importance ever since the cabinet has approved and has established the Ministry of Ayush in 2014. So as the Ayush Ministry says, Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddhi and Homeopathy. And particularly if we talk about Kerala, so already in the roller coaster ride ever since independence, so Kerala has actually modelized the Ayurveda and its importance in the state, and has taken several measures to make Ayurveda global effectiveness and its overall effectiveness not only in the state but in the world as well. So copying the Kerala model, even the state, even the central government is actually putting a lot of efforts in emphasizing the importance and effectiveness of Ayurveda not only in India but in the world. So now down the line, 21st of June, we will also be celebrating the World or National Yoga Day, and it is not only a National Yoga Day now. So worldwide people celebrate this day, and they actually practice yoga more profoundly than even a person or an Indian does. So Ayurveda, ever since history, we've been reading about it. It has its effectiveness, and we take it from the herbs, from the natural resources. So entire medication, entire process is done through the natural resources that we've got, right? So this was very important for the Ayurveda's development in the country, right? Then moving on next. So NH53, which is a state-owned national highway, so it has actually created a Guinness World Record for the longest continuously laid bituminous lane of 75 kilometers in merely 105 hours and 33 minutes on the national highway between the Amravati and the Akola districts in the Maharashtra. So this 75 kilometers of single lane was actually, it is equivalent to 37.5 kilometers of two lane, which is paved shoulder road. And this work actually started on 3rd of June and it was completed by 7th June. So the previous Guinness World Record for the longest continuously laid bituminous was for building nearly 25.275 kilometers, and it was done in the Qatar. It was done in the Doha, capital city of Qatar, back in February 2019, and now we have set this new record. So earlier this task, which was laid by the Qatar nation, so it was completed in 10 days, right? And averagely we have completed in merely 5-6 days, right? So this Amravati to Akola district highway, so it is a part of NH53 and very important corridor which connects the some of the important cities of India like Kolkata, Raipur, Nagpur and Surat. So next we have is, okay, so let us talk about the Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. So recently the pop singer Justin Bieber has been diagnosed with the Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. So this is also known as the Herpes Zoster syndrome. Herpes Zoster syndrome, right? So this is also known as the herpes zoster oticus. So it is a virus infection of the geniculate ganglion, so of the facial nerve. So it occurs when a shingles, it affects the facial nerve. So when the nerve gets inflamed, so that particular nerve, it loses its ability to perform or to function, which leads to the facial paralysis. So it is a very rare syndrome, however, only 5 or 10 out of nearly 1 lakh will ever develop this kind of syndrome. So making it as an extremely rare disorder. So this is caused by the reactivation of the varicella zoster, that is the virus name, varicella zoster. So reactivation of varicella zoster virus, which previously used to cause the chicken pox or even the shingles in the patient. So this virus belongs to the herpes virus group. So it belongs to the herpes virus group, right? And it can stay in the body as a latent infection. So this disease is, however, it is not contagious, but it can lead to chicken pox in those patients who are not vaccinated, right? So the symptoms of this disease, it starts with the reddish patch, which may inflame into the persistent rash, and then this rash can further go to ear canal or the earlobe, to the tongue, to the roof of the mouth, and even to every nerve it can be affected. So however, if we talk about its treatment, so antiviral therapies and the corticosteroids are being used with on this. Corticosteroids are used to treat this syndrome, right? So moving on next. So Ancovax. So recently the Agriculture Ministry unveiled Ancovax, which is India's first COVID-19 vaccine for animals. So this was developed by the Hisar-based National Research Center on Equines. The vaccine, which is called Ancovax, it can protect the the animals against the Delta and the Omicron variants of the SARS-CoV. So Ancovax can be used in the dogs, leopards, lions, mice and rabbits, and it is an inactivated vaccine which is developed using an infectious part of the Delta variant. So this particular vaccine or this particular variant or this particular vaccine, it uses the L-hydrogel as an adjuvant to boost the immune system or to boost the immune response. So this came, of course, there have been several parts of nations where we have got the reports where the animals were getting infected, including the dogs and cats, and this vaccine can actually protect the animals in the zoo also. So it can also protect the transmission from the companion animals. They will get immunity definitely. So the aim behind making this vaccination is to protect the endangered animals such as lions and the tigers, right? So moving on to the next. Very, very important, the Environmental Performance Index. So this newly released index measured by the Yale and the Columbia universities, wherein the India is ranked at the bottom among the 180 nations. So India's rank is 180th. So speaking of this particular index, so it leverages around 40 performance indicators, which are further clubbed into 11 issue categories, and these 11 issue categories were further categorized into the three major areas, which are environmental health, ecosystem vitality and climate change, right? So speaking of the top key highlights of the Environmental Performance Index, so in this list, Denmark tops the ranking, which is an achievement rooted in strong performance across nearly all the issues which are tracked by the EPI. After Denmark, we have United Kingdom and Finland ranking second and third respectively, both earning high scores for slashing the greenhouse gas emissions in the recent years. Then United States ranked 43rd in this list, and India, as I had mentioned, it had ranked 180th, which is again quite low as compared to 2021 or 2020, when we actually ranked 168. So we actually slipped in the ranking from 168 to 180. Whereas the countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Vietnam and Myanmar, they are also the bottom ranking nations. So in the EPI 2020, Denmark was ranked first again. So ideally this ranking is a biennial index, which means this index is actually calculated or covered every 2 years. The index reports comes after every 2 years. So this EPI, it enables the decision makers to recognize the drivers of the top tier performance, and also it helps in analyzing the environment efficient policies which have been ruled out by the governments. So this also highlights the importance of sustainable development goals, and that we must go further in sustainable development in support of more environment friendly and environmentally secure and equitable future, right? So of course, not a very good news for India, as we are doing so much in the environment sphere, and even spending a lot of budgetary amount or budgetary allocations have been done in the environmental aspect also. So the last news of the day. So India is ranked 7th in the FDI inflows by UNCTAD. So the World Investment Report has been given by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, which is an intergovernmental organization formed in the year 1964, and it is currently headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. So in this report, the FDI inflows are being projected. So FDI stands for foreign direct investments, which are the investments made by the foreign persons or the foreign companies in the host country, right? So these investments accounts, or these are more important for any host country, as these are directly made on the equities of the company. So ideally the FDIs has declined from 2020 2021, in this report, but still India is in the top 10. So it's of course a better news for us, at least during the post COVID recovery, when we are already experiencing so much of low news and bad news around, that we are ranking low in EPI, and we are having the high inflation rates. The RBI is struggling hard to get back on the gold rates. We have a high international oil prices. So during all these negative business environment and economic environment, at least this is the one we will definitely love to celebrate, that we are in the top notch and ranking 7th among the top recipients of FDI in the year 2021, right? So as you can see in the ranking, so USA ranked the top in this list, followed by China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Canada, Brazil, and then 7th rank is held by India, and after India we have South Africa, Russia and Mexico. So these are the top 10 nations which are actually making a huge news through the FDI inflows. However, the prospects of 2021 were quite on a grimmer end, as the global FDI in 2021 were not so profitable, or they were not so favorable from the investments point of view, and there had been multiple reasons behind it, because we know that Ukraine war was there, and then rise in oil prices, post COVID recovery scenarios, some anti globalized policies launched by launched by several countries, and then some of the regional conflicts were there in 2021, due to which it has actually made the investors more aversive towards the foreign investments, and they started investing in their own in their host countries, right? So even the outward FDI flows from South Asia, mainly from India, they actually rose by 43% to nearly 16 billion US dollars. So currently, if I say that, due to even during the COVID-19 waves, the FDIs in the Asia region, in the, in the developing Asia region, continued to stay on an all-time high for the consecutively 3 years, and it is the largest recipient region of FDI in the world, and it accounts for nearly 40% of the global inflows. So of course Asia is said to be one of the favorable region to invest in, due to the large marketplace. More investments are being held in the greenfield projects, and even the tech, the space centers, the technology is growing at a very accelerated growth in the Asia, which is why the Asia region is currently attracting highest FDIs. So the inflow remain highly concentrated in the 6 countries in Asia, namely China, Hong Kong, Singapore, India, United Arab Emirates and the Indonesia. And only these 6 nations accounts for 80% of the FDI. Definitely we know that Singapore, India, China, Hong Kong, they are one of the most attractive destinations for the foreign investors, and the investors love to invest in these nations to actually reap the benefits of its potential markets. So further it is said that more than 60% of the greenfield investments are made in the developed countries, but the research and development investments are made more in the developing nations. So greenfield investments are those investments which are the niche investments or the new investments. So ideally the new investments or the niche investments are made in developed nations, because of taking profits of the their world-class infrastructure. However, the research investments are made more in the developing nations to reap the benefits of their marketplace, their size, and even the low cost, right? So even in the developing countries, the United States, the multinational enterprises targeted India in 8% of the deals, mostly buying the minority stakes to gain access to the market. So of course we've had news wherein the Facebook buying shares of Jio, and Apple coming and starting up its production unit in India. So these all shows that definitely the Western countries are finding the Asian markets more profitable than the European and Central markets, right? So definitely it added that even the Chinese companies, they also account for 11% of the deals and invested a relatively higher share in the developing economy. So this report also noted that the investment facilitation measures which are undertaken by the nations, they accounted for almost 40% of all the measures more favorable to the investments. So for example, if India had launched the national single window system, which will become a one step solution for the approvals and clearances which is needed by the investors, so it has actually ampulated the number of investors in the nation. So definitely if you make one such effort to ease the challenges, to ease the issues, it will multiply, or it will actually give a multiplier effect to the investors, and they will start investing in your nation, right? So that is all for today. I hope you like the video. I hope you like this session. And if you did like it, please share it to the other aspirants also and hit the bell icon. Thank you so much. This is Nitika signing off for today.